Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. My fiancée looked me in the eye and said, "I could replace you in 24 hours, then force me out of the home we shared like I was a stranger she'd gotten tired of feeding." Here's how it happened. I'm still embarrassed by how fast my life went from wedding plans and shared grocery lists to a duffel bag, a wrinkled suit on a hanger, and the sound of my own heartbeat while I stood in the dark outside a townhouse that no longer wanted me. It didn't start with screaming. It started with her getting comfortable treating me like I was optional, like love was something she could swap the way she swapped phone cases. Her name is Nia Brooks. Mine is Jamal Carter. We were both born and raised in North Carolina, both black, both taught to keep our business quiet and our faces calm in public. Nia liked to say we were the stable couple, the ones people asked for advice. We met at a charity gala in Charlotte 2 years before this happened, the kind with a silent auction and tiny desserts you couldn't pronounce. She worked in marketing for a medical group. I managed operations for a regional logistics company. She laughed at my jokes, held my arm, and said I felt safe. I believed her because I wanted to. Nia was polished, the kind of woman who wore simple gold hoops that probably cost more than my first car payment. She spoke softly but carried authority in her tone, like it was perfume. I liked that she had goals and standards. I'd grown up watching my parents build something steady without much, so I respected ambition. After 6 months, Nia suggested we move in together. She framed it as efficiency. Less commute, fewer bills, more time to plan our future. She found a townhouse in South End, close to her office, and called it our launch pad. "It's just easier if it's in my name," she said when the leasing office asked who would sign. "My credit is cleaner, and it'll speed things up." She said it like she was saving us time, not setting the table for control. I didn't argue. I contributed anyway. Half the rent, utilities, groceries, furniture. I bought the couch she loved, the one with the wide arms and deep seats. I installed the smart lock and security cameras because she said the neighborhood was nice but unpredictable. I paid for the movers. I thought partnership meant building together, no matter whose name was on paper. Nia's family loved her loudly and judged quietly. Her mother, Denise, greeted me with perfect hugs and careful eyes. Her older sister, Alyssa, was the kind of pretty that came with a smirk, like she knew what people wanted before they said it. They were polite to my face, but everything felt like an interview I didn't know I was taking. At Sunday dinners in Concord, Denise would compliment Nia's drive and then ask me what my long-term trajectory looked like. Alyssa would laugh and say, "As long as you keep up with her." It always sounded like a warning. The first year living together, I tried to keep our home peaceful. I cooked most nights because it relaxed me. Nia would sit at the kitchen island, heels off, laptop open, venting about coworkers. I listened, rubbed her shoulders, told her she was brilliant. I wasn't perfect. I worked long hours, and sometimes I came home drained and quiet. But I showed up. I paid my share. I fixed things. I took her car for oil changes. I remembered her favorite tea. I thought love was made of consistent small things. Nia seemed to agree until she didn't. The shift was subtle at first, like a light dimming you don't notice until the room feels cold. Wedding planning turned that dimness into a shadow. Nia became obsessed with appearances, not in a vain way, but in a controlling way. Like every detail proved something about her worth. She wanted a venue outside Raleigh with white columns and a garden ceremony. She wanted custom invitations, a live band, and a rehearsal dinner that felt upscale. I told her we could afford it if we were smart, if we kept a budget. That word, budget, made her lips tighten. "I'm not doing a cheap wedding," she said. "I waited too long for this." I suggested we split costs based on income. She stared at me like I'd insulted her. "You're the man," she said softly. "You're supposed to handle the big stuff." I didn't respond the way I wanted to because I didn't want to turn love into a debate. I agreed to cover more than I should have. I picked up overtime shifts. I took on extra responsibilities at work. I told myself it was temporary. Meanwhile, Nia started making little comments that landed like small cuts. If I was tired, she said I lacked fire. If I questioned a purchase, she said I was fearful. If I asked her to communicate, she said I was needy. Every time I tried to address it, she acted like I was imagining things. The blow-up happened on a Thursday in late October, the kind of day when the air in Charlotte turns crisp and the city smells like exhaust and coffee. I came home later than usual because a shipment had been delayed and my team was scrambling. I walked in expecting quiet. Instead, I heard laughter, sharp and familiar. Alyssa was in our living room, shoes kicked off, legs tucked under her like she lived there. Nia was on the couch with her, phone in hand, both of them watching something and giggling. My stomach tightened because their laughter stopped the moment I walked in, like a curtain dropping. "Hey," I said carefully, forcing warmth. "Didn't know you had company." Nia didn't get up. She didn't even shift. "Alyssa needed a break," she said. Alyssa smiled without kindness. "We're just hanging out," she added, stretching the words. I went to the kitchen and saw dishes piled in the sink, takeout containers on the counter, the trash overflowing. It was the opposite of how I kept our home. I turned the faucet on and started rinsing plates because I didn't want to argue. That's when Nia said, "So you're just going to do that?" No hello kiss. Her voice was sweet but baited. I dried my hand and walked back, kissed her forehead. She didn't look at me. "I'm exhausted," I said. "Today was a lot." Alyssa clicked her tongue. "It's always a lot with you," she said. I felt heat rise in my face, not because of Alyssa, but because Nia didn't shut it down. She watched me like she wanted to see if I would snap, so she could label me the problem. "I'm not doing this," I said, keeping my voice calm. "If you want to talk, we can talk. But I'm not going back and forth with your sister." Nia's eyes narrowed, like I'd challenged her authority in her own kingdom. "My sister is family," Nia said. "Don't talk to her like she's nobody." I swallowed. "I didn't talk to her like she's nobody," I replied. "I'm asking for respect." That word, respect, set something off. Nia sat up straighter, and her calm face turned sharp. "Respect?" she repeated, like it was a joke. "You want respect while you drag your feet on everything?" Alyssa leaned forward, eager. "He's always acting like he's doing you a favor," she added. Nia nodded, like she was accepting testimony. "Exactly," she said. "You're replaceable, Jamal. You act like you're the prize, but you're not." I went still, not because it hurt. I mean, it did, but because it felt unreal hearing it in my own living room. "What did you just say?" I asked. Nia's lips curled. "I said you're replaceable," she repeated. Then she added the line that changed everything. "I could replace you in 24 hours. Alyssa laughed like she'd been waiting for that moment. My chest tightened. I looked around the room, the couch I bought, the TV mount I installed, the framed photos of us smiling. It felt like watching a life dissolve in real time. I tried to speak, but my throat felt dry. Nia didn't flinch. She looked satisfied. "So what?" I finally said, voice low. "You're saying that to hurt me?" Nia shrugged. "I'm saying it because it's true," she replied. "You think I can't find another man? You think you're the only one willing to marry me?" She turned her phone toward Alyssa like she was showing proof. "Men are everywhere," Alyssa said. "Good men, too." I stared at them, both comfortable, both cruel, both acting like I deserved it. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't slamming doors. I was just standing there, stunned, trying to understand how someone I planned to marry could speak to me like that without blinking. I walked away to the bedroom because I needed air. I heard them whispering behind me. Laughter returning like my pain was entertainment. In the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the closet where my suits hung. I thought about my father, who used to tell me, "Never beg anybody to see your value." I wanted to leave right then, but I also wanted to stand my ground in my own home. I didn't even know if it was my home in her mind. I heard Nia's footsteps. Then she appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, expression flat. Alyssa hovered behind her like backup. "So what are you doing?" Nia asked. "You're sulking now?" I looked up. "I'm trying to process what you said." I told her. That wasn't okay. Nia tilted her head. "You always make everything dramatic," she said. "I'm tired of walking on eggshells around you." My jaw clenched. "I've never asked you to walk on eggshells," I replied. "I've asked you to treat me like a partner." Nia's eyes hardened. "Partner," she repeated, "doesn't mean you get to control my tone, my family, my life." Her voice rose just enough to feel threatening. "If you can't handle who I am, maybe you should leave." I stood up slowly, trying not to let my anger take the wheel. I'm not leaving because you insulted me, I said. This is our home. Nia laughed once, sharp. No, she corrected. This is my home. It's in my name. Alyssa smirked like she'd been waiting for that card. My stomach dropped. We pay for it together, I said. We built this together. Nia stepped closer. You pay half, she said. That doesn't make you entitled to anything. And I'm done with your attitude. Then she did something that still makes my hands shake when I remember it. She walked to the closet, pulled out a suitcase, and tossed it onto the bed. Pack, Nia said, voice calm as a receipt. You're not staying here tonight. I stared at the suitcase like it was a weapon. Nia, I said, stop. We can talk. She didn't move. I don't want to talk, she replied. I want peace. And you don't bring peace. Alyssa folded her arms, eyes bright. You hurt her, she said. I felt my face burn. You can't just put me out, I said. This is where I live. Nia's expression didn't change. Watch me, she said. I'll call the police and tell them you're refusing to leave. It wasn't the threat itself that cut me. It was how comfortable she was making it. Like I wasn't her fiancé, just a problem to remove. You'd really do that? I asked. Nia shrugged. Don't test me, she said. You've been acting like you're the man of this house. You're not. You're a guest who forgot his place. That sentence landed like a slap. I looked at Alyssa, hoping for some humanity. She rolled her eyes. Don't look at me, she said. You should have been handling your woman. I felt dizzy. I never felt so disrespected in a place I helped pay for. My phone buzzed in my pocket, work messages piling up, but none of it mattered. I realized in that moment that Nia wasn't trying to solve anything. She was trying to win. I started packing because I didn't want a police car outside, didn't want handcuffs, didn't want neighbors watching. My hands moved on autopilot, folding shirts, grabbing a few pairs of shoes, throwing toiletries into a bag. Nia stood in the doorway the entire time, arms still crossed, watching like a supervisor making sure an employee cleared out their desk. Alyssa sat on the bed, scrolling through her phone, occasionally laughing at something she saw. The humiliation was thick. I kept thinking Nia would soften, would say something like, I'm angry, but don't go. She didn't. She checked her nails and said, You've got 10 minutes. When I carried the suitcase out, she didn't help. She didn't even look sad. At the door, I paused with my hand on the knob. Nia, I said quietly, I'm supposed to marry you. She shrugged like that was a minor scheduling conflict. Then act like it, she replied. Or don't. Like I said, I can replace you. Alyssa laughed again, and that sound followed me down the walkway. Outside, the air hit my face and made my eyes sting. I loaded my bag into my car and sat behind the wheel, hands gripping it too tight. I couldn't breathe right. My chest felt like it was caving in. I called my cousin Marcus in Greensboro because I had nowhere else to go. When he answered, I tried to sound normal. You up? I asked. My voice cracked anyway. Marcus didn't ask too many questions. He just said, come through. The drive to Greensboro felt like a blur of red lights and shame. I kept replaying Nia's words, trying to find the moment I could have redirected it, the sentence I could have said that might have saved my dignity. But the truth was, I couldn't argue my way out of someone else's disrespect. When I got to Marcus's apartment, he opened the door and took one look at me. Man, he said softly. I dropped my bag inside and sat on his couch like my body didn't remember how to hold itself up. Marcus handed me water, then stood there waiting. I told him everything in fragments. The more I spoke, the worse I felt, like speaking it made it real. The next morning, my phone was full of messages from Nia. Not apologies. Instructions. Make sure you forward any mail. Don't touch the account. You can pick up the rest of your things Saturday between 2 and 3. Then a message that made my stomach flip. And don't embarrass me by telling people lies. I stared at the screen, confused. Lies? She was the one who put me out. But I understood what she meant. She wanted control of the narrative. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from a mutual friend, Deshawn. Yo, Nia good? She said you had a breakdown and left. A breakdown? Left. Like I chose it. Like I walked away because I was unstable. I called Nia. She didn't pick up. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I texted, Why are you telling people I left? You forced me out. She replied immediately. like she'd been waiting for me to react. Stop being dramatic. You packed and left. That's what happened. My hand shook. You threatened to call the police? I texted. She responded, because you were escalating. I stared at that word. Escalating. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't thrown anything. I had simply refused to accept being disrespected. In her mind, my calm resistance was escalation. Her cruelty was just boundary setting. That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with a misunderstanding. I was dealing with a person who rewrote reality to protect her ego. Saturday came like an appointment for my own erasure. I drove back to Charlotte with Marcus because I didn't trust myself to go alone. The townhouse looked the same from the outside. Neat, modern, clean lines, potted plants on the porch. Inside, it felt different. The air smelled like a new candle, something expensive and floral. Nia opened the door with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She acted like we were exchanging items after a casual breakup. Alyssa was there, of course, leaning against the kitchen counter like a bouncer. You got 30 minutes, Nia said. Marcus stepped behind me, quiet but present. I walked past the living room and noticed something that made my stomach turn, a men's jacket on the back of a chair that wasn't mine. I tried not to react. I went straight to the bedroom and started pulling my things from drawers. My hands moved fast because I didn't want to give Nia the satisfaction of seeing me slow down. Nia followed me, watching like before. See, she said casually. No drama. This is better. I ignored her. Then she added, I already changed the smart lock code. I froze. What? I asked. Nia shrugged. Because you don't live here, she replied. Alyssa laughed from the hallway. I looked at the dresser and saw that some of my things were missing. My watch box, a pair of cufflinks my father gave me, and a folder with important receipts I kept organized. Where's my stuff? I asked. Nia lifted an eyebrow. I didn't steal from you, she said, offended, as if theft was beneath her even when cruelty wasn't. Marcus cleared his throat. We're just here to get his belongings, he said calmly. Nia smiled at him, but it was the kind of smile you'd give someone you plan to dismiss. And I'm letting him, she replied. She looked at me again. Take what you need and go. I want to scream. Instead, I opened my phone notes and started listing what I saw missing. Nia noticed and rolled her eyes. Oh, you're one of those, she said. You're going to make a spreadsheet? Alyssa laughed like she was watching a comedy special. I kept writing anyway, because I needed something solid in a situation designed to make me feel crazy. When I grabbed my suit bag, I noticed my garment hangers had been replaced with cheaper ones. She had already started erasing me. As I carried boxes to my car, a neighbor I barely knew waved politely. My cheeks burned. I wondered what they heard. I wondered if they thought I was some man getting kicked out for cheating or violence, the kind of story people assume when a man leaves in a hurry. Nia stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, watching me load my life into my trunk. At one point she called out, Make sure you get everything. I'm not storing your junk. Junk. The couch I bought was in her living room. The security system I installed was on her door. But I was junk. When I drove away, my hands gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. Marcus followed behind me, and I tried not to cry in front of him. I failed anyway. The weeks that followed were the darkest I've ever lived through. I slept on Marcus's couch in Greensboro, waking up before dawn because my body wouldn't let me rest. I went to work in Charlotte some days and stayed in Greensboro other days, depending on meetings. My boss noticed I was quieter. I told him I was going through personal stuff. He nodded and didn't ask questions, but I could feel the distance. Nia's story spread through our circle like smoke. People avoided direct questions but dropped hints. Hope you're taking care of yourself, someone said, eyes cautious. Relationships are hard. Another said, like this was mutual. Nobody said, I'm sorry she did that to you. Nia stayed loud in subtle ways. She posted selfies in our townhouse, smiling with perfect lighting. She posted captions about choosing peace and letting go of dead weight. She didn't tag me, but she didn't have to. Our friends knew. And then, exactly as she promised, she replaced me publicly. A man appeared in her photos. Darnell Hayes, tall, broad-shouldered, with a grin that looked practiced. He was always half visible at first, a hand on her waist, a reflection in a window, then fully present. One photo showed him holding a glass of wine in my living room, the couch I bought behind him. Nia captioned it, "Energy matters." My stomach turned. She was building a new life on top of mine, like I was a foundation she could ignore. I wanted to retaliate. I wanted to comment the truth on her posts. I wanted to call her mother and tell her what kind of daughter she raised. But every time I lifted my hands toward that kind of fight, I heard my father's voice again. Never beg anybody to see your value. Nia wasn't begging me to come back. She was daring me to lose control so she could justify everything she'd said. So I stayed quiet, but inside I was breaking. I stopped eating well. I lost weight. I started skipping the gym because I couldn't stand the mirrors. At night, I stared at the ceiling and wondered what I did wrong to deserve being discarded with such ease. The lowest moment came when Denise called me. Her name flashed on my screen and my chest tightened. I answered anyway because part of me still believed in respect. "Jamal," she said, voice smooth, "I'm calling because Nia is stressed." I blinked. "Stressed?" I repeated. Denise sighed like I was slow. "Yes," she said. "She's trying to move forward, and you're making it difficult." I felt dizzy. "Ow," I asked. Denise's tone hardened. "By being emotional," she said. "By talking to people. By making her look like the villain." I laughed once bitter because I hadn't talked to anybody. I've been hiding on a couch like a ghost. "I didn't do anything," I said. Denise responded, "Then stop acting like a victim." Then she added the sentence that made my throat burn. "If you were a stronger man, she wouldn't have needed to push you." Push you. Like forcing someone out of their home was a reasonable correction. After that call, I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel until my vision blurred. I realized I wasn't just losing Nia. I was losing the idea that people would automatically recognize fairness. Sometimes they side with whoever looks confident. Nia looked confident. I looked broken. So the world assumed she must be right. I drove to a small park in Greensboro and walked until my legs ached. The trees were bare, the air sharp. I sat on a bench and let myself feel everything I'd been stuffing down: anger, humiliation, grief, fear. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But peace felt like a language I'd forgotten. That's when I decided I needed help that wasn't Marcus's couch and my own willpower. I found a therapist in Raleigh who offered evening sessions. Her name was Dr. Kendra Sloan, and she had calm eyes and a voice that made silence feel safe. In the first session, I sat stiff in the chair, embarrassed to be there. Dr. Sloan didn't ask me to be strong. She asked me to be honest. I told her the story, and when I said she forced me out, my voice cracked. I hated that weakness showed. Dr. Sloan nodded. "That's displacement," she said gently. "Control. Emotional abuse." Hearing someone name it didn't erase the pain, but it made me feel less crazy. It wasn't that I was too sensitive. It was that I was being harmed. Dr. Sloan gave me simple homework. Stop watching Nia's life online. Stop letting her define my value. Write down what I knew was true. The first night I tried, I wrote, "I did not deserve that." Then I stared at it for a long time, like I wasn't sure I believed it. The next day at work, my phone buzzed with another message from Deshaun. "Man, Nia said you're asking people for money because you're homeless." I felt my blood run cold. I wasn't asking anyone for money. I had a job. I was just displaced. I realized Nia wasn't just moving on. She was punishing me for existing outside her control. She wanted the story to be that I failed without her. She wanted my suffering to prove she was right to discard me. That's when I stopped being passive. Not loud, not public, just deliberate. I pulled up my banking history and gathered records of every bill I paid for that townhouse. Utilities, internet, security system, furniture payments, repairs, even the deposit for the wedding venue that I put on my card. I didn't do it to get her. I did it because I needed boundaries written in facts. Dr. Sloan told me, "You can't control her behavior, but you can control your exposure." So I removed myself from the shared accounts we still had, canceled auto payments tied to my name, and transferred my personal savings to an account only I controlled. I changed my direct deposit at work. I updated my mailing address. Each small step felt like regaining oxygen. Nia noticed the moment the money stopped flowing smoothly. She called me at midnight. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then she texted, "Why did the internet payment bounce?" I didn't respond. She texted again, "Don't be petty. Then, answer your phone." The next morning she sent, "You're proving you're immature." That word, immature, made me want to laugh. She had thrown me out and replaced me with another man like she was changing clothes, and I was immature for detaching my finances. I forwarded her a single message. "Anything in my name will be removed from my name. Communicate only by text." She replied, "You're bitter. No remorse. Just annoyance that I wasn't convenient anymore." Meanwhile, Darnell settled into her townhouse like he'd been there all along. Friends posted stories at her place. Music, drinks, laughter, without tagging the location, but I recognized the kitchen island and the hallway mirror. It felt like being haunted by my own furniture. Then a mutual acquaintance told Marcus something that made my stomach tighten. Darnell had a reputation for moving fast with women and leaving messes behind. Nia didn't care. Nia liked the idea of being chosen quickly. It made her feel powerful. She wanted proof she was replaceable, proof that she could swap me out and still keep the same lifestyle. What she didn't understand was that she wasn't replacing a person. She was replacing stability. And stability doesn't come with a first date smile. The karma didn't arrive as a dramatic confrontation. It arrived like consequences always do, quiet at first, then unavoidable. One Friday night, I got a call from an unknown number. I ignored it. Then the same number texted, "This is Officer Reynolds with CMPD. We have your number associated with a vehicle registered at address. Please call." My heart pounded. My number? Associated with Nia's address? I called back immediately, hands shaking. The officer asked if I still lived at the townhouse. I said no. He asked if I knew Darnell Hayes. I said I didn't. Then he told me Darnell had been pulled over driving Nia's car. His license was suspended, and there was an outstanding warrant in another county for failure to appear. The car had been impounded. My stomach dropped. I asked why they contacted me. The officer said my number was listed as an emergency contact on a document in the glove compartment, an old insurance card I'd printed months earlier when we were still together. I hung up and stared at my phone like it was hot. My first reaction wasn't satisfaction. It was exhaustion. Even when I tried to detach, Nia's choices still reached for me. Within minutes, Nia called. I let it ring. She called again. I answered on the third ring because I wanted to hear the truth from her mouth. "Jamal," she snapped, skipping hello. "Why are the police calling you?" Her tone was accusation, like I'd planned this. "They called because my number was on an old card," I said. "Remove it." Nia hissed. "This is your fault." I let silence sit. "Ow," I asked. She didn't answer that. She just said, "Darnell needs help getting the car back." Needs help? Like I was supposed to rescue the man she used to replace me. "I'm not helping," I said, voice steady. Nia's anger flared. "You're so jealous," she spat. "You're sick." I felt something in me settle, like a door closing gently. "Nia," I said, "stop calling me." She laughed once, sharp. "You're acting like you have power," she said. "You don't." Then she said the same cruel line with a new edge. "I replaced you. Remember?" I ended the call. My hands were trembling, but my mind was clear. That interaction confirmed everything therapy had been teaching me. Nia didn't want partnership. She wanted control, and she was furious that I was slipping out of her grip. Over the next week, the consequences multiplied for her. Impound fees stacked daily. Darnell couldn't legally drive, so she had to miss work to take ride shares and beg favors from friends. The Townhouse Association received complaints about late-night arguments and loud music. Denise called me again, not to apologize, but to demand I fix this mess because Nia is under pressure. I said, "I'm not involved." Denise's voice turned icy. "So you're going to punish her?" she said. Punish her? Like refusing to be used was cruelty. I told her, "Do not contact me again." Then I blocked her number. My finger hovered over the screen for a second because part of me still wanted approval. Then I pressed block anyway. It felt like cutting a cord that had been choking me. Nia tried another tactic, the wedding. She texted me a long message about how we should still be adults and finish what we started. She said the venue was calling about final payments. She said vendors needed confirmations. She didn't say she missed me. She didn't say she regretted forcing me out. She just wanted my money and my cooperation. I replied, Cancel what you want. I will not pay for a wedding I'm no longer welcome in. Nia responded instantly. You're weak. This is why I needed someone else. I stared at the screen until the words stopped stinging and started sounding like noise. Then I did something that made my heart beat faster than it had in weeks. I called the venue myself. I asked what my deposits were tied to. The coordinator explained calmly that refunds would only go to the cardholder for payments made on that card. I was the cardholder. I didn't celebrate. I simply requested documentation. I requested itemized receipts. I asked what deadlines existed. Then I called the travel company handling the honeymoon package, the one Nia insisted on because she wanted ocean views and private dinners. Same thing. Payments are on my card, refundable under specific conditions. I follow the process quietly, filling out forms and sending emails, not with rage, but with discipline. Nia didn't know what I was doing. She thought intimidation would keep me in place. She thought I'd fold because I was the nice one. What she never respected was that calm doesn't mean weak. Calm can be focus, and focus, over time, changes outcomes. Nia found out when her accounts didn't reflect the money she expected. She called screaming, actually screaming this time, voice cracking with fury. What did you do? She demanded. I handle my finances, I said. She cursed, then said something that showed how she viewed me the entire time. That money was for my wedding. My wedding, not ours. I exhaled slowly. It was for a wedding, I corrected, not a performance. Nia laughed like I was corny. You're so dramatic, she said. You really think you're teaching me a lesson? There was again, no remorse, only contempt. She didn't see my boundaries as self-protection. She saw them as an attack on her entitlement. When I didn't react emotionally, she grew colder. Fine, she said. You can keep your little refunds. You'll still be alone. Then she hung up on me. Alone was a word that used to scare me. After Nia, it started to sound like peace. Still, the loneliness hit hard in quiet moments. I'd sit on Marcus's couch and hear him laughing on the phone with his girlfriend, and my chest would ache. I'd drive past couples holding hands and feel a bitterness I didn't like in myself. I'd remember how Nia used to curl into my side during movies and wonder if any of it was real. Dr. Sloan told me grief doesn't require the other person to have been kind. You're mourning what you believed, she said. That hit me. I wasn't just mourning Nia. I was mourning the future I built in my head, the version of her I loved that maybe never existed. Around that time, my job offered me a transfer opportunity to Raleigh, higher responsibility, better pay, more stability. A year earlier, I would have hesitated because Nia wanted Charlotte. Now, I saw it as a door. I accepted quietly, signed the paperwork, and started looking for a small apartment. I didn't want anything flashy. I wanted clean space and control over my own keys. I found a one-bedroom in a quiet complex near a tree-lined street, not far from a grocery store and a gym. The day I got my keys, I stood alone in the empty living room and felt something strange. Safety. No one could throw me out of this place. No one could threaten me with police to win an argument. I could exhale here. I moved with only what I truly needed. A bed, a small table, a lamp, a few pots and pans, my clothes. The first night, I slept on a mattress on the floor and woke up in silence. No insults, no smirks, no voices in the next room judging me. Just quiet. I went to work, did my job, came home, cooked simple meals, and sat in that quiet like it was medicine. Slowly, my appetite returned. Slowly, my sleep improved. I started lifting weights again, not to prove anything, but because my body needed to feel strong for itself. I began saving aggressively, money that used to disappear into wedding deposits and keeping up with Nia's standards. I built a private cushion that nobody knew about. It felt like building walls, but healthy walls. Nia's life, on the other hand, got louder. I didn't seek updates, but news has a way of finding you when people love drama. Alyssa posted vague statements about fake men and broke boys with angry emojis. Nia posted quotes about betrayal and protecting your energy. Then the tone shifted to stress. Late-night posts about people who switch up. A story of her sitting in a car, looking tired. Someone told Marcus that Darnell had moved out abruptly after an argument, leaving behind unpaid bills and damaged property. Nia blamed everyone but herself. She said people were jealous. She said people were preying on her downfall. She said she was too good for the kind of love she kept choosing. Not once did she admit she forced a good man out of a home and treated him like disposable trash. The sudden, satisfying part of karma came through the thing Nia loved most, control of her image. Darnell didn't just leave. He left messes that couldn't be filtered. The Townhouse Association fined her for repeated disturbances. Her car insurance premium spiked after the impound incident and added risk factors. Her job reprimanded her for missed days and distracted performance. Then, according to a mutual friend who worked in property management, the landlord decided not to renew her lease because the unit had become high risk. Nia tried to negotiate, tried to charm, tried to threaten. It didn't matter. Paperwork doesn't care about charisma. Deadlines don't care about pride. She had built her life on the assumption that she could dominate outcomes with attitude. Now, she was meeting systems that only responded to responsibility. Nia called me again after months of silence. The number popped up, and for a moment my body reacted like it used to. Heart thump, stomach tight. I let it ring twice, then answered because I wanted to know what version of her would show up. "Jamal," she said, voice softer than before. For one second I thought, maybe she was going to apologize. Then she continued, "I need you to confirm you're not on any of the lease paperwork anymore. No apology, just a request." I almost laughed. "I was never on the lease," I said. "You made sure of that." She exhaled sharply, irritated. "Okay, well, I'm moving," she said, "and I'm not trying to deal with complications." Complications, like I was an administrative inconvenience. My throat tightened with anger, but it passed quickly. "Don't call me again," I said. She paused, then said, "You really think you can ignore me forever?" The entitlement was still there, even in her stress. "Yes," I replied. Then I hung up. After that call, I sat on my couch in Raleigh and realized something important. I didn't hate her. Hate would mean she still owned space in me. What I felt was clarity. Nia would never give me closure because closure would require accountability. So I gave it to myself. I wrote a final note in my phone, not to send, but to release. I wrote, "You don't get to measure my worth." Then I deleted our photos from my device, not because I wanted to pretend it never happened, but because I didn't want my future to keep tripping over my past. I boxed the few gifts she gave me and stored them away. I stopped checking her pages. I stopped asking friends for updates. I stopped feeding the wound. Work became the place where I rebuilt myself quietly. I volunteered for complicated projects no one wanted because I needed to prove something to me, not to them. I studied for an operations certification after hours, the one I kept postponing because wedding planning ate my time. I passed on the first try. My supervisor noticed my consistency and offered me a higher role managing a larger region. I accepted, negotiated my salary, and signed the offer without posting about it. No celebratory speeches. No announcement. Just a private moment in my car afterward where I sat with the reality. I was moving forward without the person who insisted I was replaceable. My success didn't feel like revenge. It felt like reclaiming my own life. The healing wasn't clean. Some nights, I still woke up with Nia's words echoing in my mind. Some days I caught myself flinching when my phone buzzed, expecting a cruel message. Dating felt impossible for a while because trust felt like a trap. Dr. Sloan reminded me that trauma isn't just what happened. It's what your body learned to expect. She taught me to notice safety again. The sound of my own keys, the routine of my own meals, the stability of my own paycheck, the calm in my own home. I started running in the mornings. I started reading again, something I hadn't done in months. I found joy in small things, clean sheets, sunlight through blinds, music playing while I cooked. It wasn't glamorous. It was life returning. Months later, I ran into Alyssa at a grocery store in Durham. I was in the produce section, picking up apples, when I heard her voice behind me. "Well, look who's alive," she said, loud enough for people to hear. I turned slowly. Alyssa smiled like she wanted a scene. "How's the couch life?" she asked. I felt heat rise in my face, but I breathed through it. I'm doing well, I said. That irritated her. Nia's been through a lot, Alyssa said, as if that was my responsibility. I nodded once. I hope she gets what she needs, I replied. Alyssa leaned closer. She said you were always jealous, she whispered. I met her eyes calmly. She can say whatever she wants, I said. It doesn't change what happened. Alyssa's smile faltered for a second. She wanted me to react. I didn't. I walked away with my apples and my peace. A week after that, I got an email from the wedding venue confirming the final refund amount and closing the account. Seeing the numbers felt surreal. That money used to represent a future with Nia. Now it represented my freedom. I transferred it into my savings and didn't tell anyone. I used a small portion to pay down a debt that had lingered too long. I used another portion to furnish my apartment better. Nothing flashy, just quality. A solid couch, a sturdy bed frame, a dining table where I could sit and eat like a person, not a guest. I also donated quietly to a local community food program because I remembered what it felt like to feel displaced, to feel uncertain. I did it without posting, without announcing, without turning it into a brand. It was simply a private way to turn pain into something cleaner. I heard, through someone who worked in Nia's orbit, that she ended up moving back in with her mother temporarily after losing the townhouse. Denise apparently treated her like a fragile princess while blaming everyone else for Nia's situation. Nia told people she escaped a controlling relationship. She told people I was insecure. She told people she was too independent for weak men. And even after everything, there was no remorse. If anything, she seemed angrier that her replacement plan didn't protect her. But none of that touched me the way it used to. Her story was her prison. My silence was my exit. I didn't need her to admit the truth for the truth to be real. The final shift happened on a quiet Sunday morning. I was sitting at my table in Raleigh, drinking coffee, watching sunlight stretch across the floor. I realized I hadn't thought about Nia in 2 full days, not in pain, not in curiosity, not in anger. 2 days might sound small, but for me it was a milestone. I remember the night she tossed that suitcase on the bed, how my body trembled as I packed under her watch. I remembered how she threatened to call the police, how she smiled when she said she could replace me in 24 hours. And I realized something that felt like a truth settling in a bone. She didn't throw me out because I was worthless. She threw me out because I challenged her control by asking for respect. People who need control don't tolerate dignity in others. I didn't become famous. I didn't make a speech. I didn't win publicly. I didn't even get an apology. What I got was something better, a private life I could trust. I paid my bills, built my savings, and protected my peace like it was sacred. I stayed close to the people who showed up quietly, Marcus, a few coworkers who checked on me without gossip, Dr. Sloan who reminded me I wasn't crazy. I rebuilt my confidence slowly, not by proving Nia wrong to the world, but by proving myself reliable to myself. I started saying no without guilt. I started recognizing disrespect early. I started choosing calm over chaos. Sometimes I still hear that line, I could replace you in 24 hours, and I almost smile, not because it doesn't hurt, but because I finally understand what it meant. She was never talking about replacing love. She was talking about replacing a role, a man who paid, absorbed, fixed, and stayed quiet. And yes, she found someone to fill that role quickly, until the role demanded stability and character, and then the mask slipped and the consequences arrived. What she couldn't replace was the kind of man who builds quietly, who stands firm without shouting, who walks away without begging, who survives being forced out and still keeps his soul intact. I didn't pack my bags and let her try like a dramatic choice. She forced me out, and in doing that, she accidentally gave me the space to become the version of myself she could never control. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.